If you missed the last episode of Catalyst, go back and listen. If you're caught up, here's where we left off.
Why are you interested in this story specifically?
Okay, the Daynon Lewis case. She was in the same grade as I was. The young girl that was murdered down by Backbone Creek.
My grandmother had certain theories, and some of them are very unpleasant to think about.
Could you imagine that something like this was an accident?
No, it just seemed more of a fanciful cover-up, if nothing else.
I don't think she died by her own hand.
Politics does play a role in everything. They're all trying to look as good and not have a bunch of unsolved cases laying around. Close the book, we'll move on to the next thing. And I think that did happen.
Nearly 60 years had passed since Daynon Lewis was discovered hanging in the shed behind her house. We located her mother and a brother still living in Texas, but they didn't want to talk on the record about what happened back then, or about questions still surrounding the case from some in their old community. The family left Marble Falls in 1966, the year after Daynon died. She's buried in the city cemetery next to her father, who died 3 decades ago. Their plots are just a few blocks down the street from where they once lived, along Backbone Creek. A different house sits there now.
Here we are. 304 South Avenue End.
We stopped by. The new homeowner explained the simple sandstone structure had been torn down, along with the shed.
How long have y'all lived here?
2003 we moved in, so my grandmother moved in here in 1973.
Yeah.
She didn't know much about the shy 13-year-old girl who was raised there.
Did you grow up in Marble Falls?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 5 years old in 1965, so I wouldn't remember.
An eerie reminder, though, of the tragedy was a few feet away in the backyard. A new shed, this one with rusty aluminum siding, in almost the same spot Daynon had been playing with others, according to her death certificate, before she disappeared.
I know the family moved away after that. I'm sure it's difficult losing a young person in your family.
Daynon's brother and his friends discovered her body there. Reports say 2 hours after last seeing the girl alive.
All right, nice to meet you.
Justice of the Peace C.B. Wall never ordered an autopsy, and within days ruled it an accidental strangulation. As we left the property, I realized my first apartment in Texas was less than a mile away, closer to downtown. 15 years earlier, still in my 20s, I'd moved to Marble Falls to work as the Hill Country Bureau reporter for KXAN.
Okay, so it's those peach-colored buildings where the gas station is. Go over to the cattle pens, and it's literally that little building that looks like a shed right now. Nope. That was my office.
The Bureau was a long way from the TV station in Austin where I'd eventually move.
What do you think?
Not what I expected, to be honest. Yeah.
But my time in this community led to some of the most interesting stories I'd ever covered. Certainly some I wouldn't forget.
Times are changing, Josh.
Yep. All right. Enough nostalgia for one day. What's next?
One of my best sources back then was the woman who ran Hill Country Area Crime Stoppers.
Anyway, if you go on a date,
it just shows that crime is increasing in the Hill Country.
That's Janie Prue in a story about a violent home invasion my very first week on the job in 2009.
It's too early to say whether the thieves targeted this home, but if they didn't, they certainly knew their way around the neighborhood.
It terrifies the community. So if someone will come into your home and terrorize you like that and take your valuables, it's scary to know that that's happening now in this area.
The last time I saw Janie in person was later that same year when I introduced her to my replacement over pie at the historic Bluebonnet Cafe.
She could be along the aisle. And then, good, how are you?
I'm just gonna get a pie.
Okay.
The Bluebonnet in Marble Falls is a must. With their mile-high meringue, since then, I always had to bring back a few slices, at least, for my coworkers in Austin when I passed through.
All right, I think I'm ready. Just a whole chocolate meringue pie.
$18.79. I'll be right back, okay?
Thank you.
It felt good to be back, even if only for a few days. And for such a somber story this time.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too. All right. Have a good one.
I had to text Janie to see if she knew anything about our case.
We got a whole pie.
A whole pie.
It turns out she was in Daynon's class back in 1965.
How are you?
Well, long time no see.
And she still had her finger on the pulse of the area's criminal community as a former Burnett and Llano County Sheriff dispatcher, and of course, still running Crime Stoppers all these years later.
What does Crime Stoppers do?
We are an anonymous source. Anybody can report crime. They can either call me on my tip line. We have an app now where they can download the app on their phone. It's real easy. And also I've got a website that they can go to and report any crime, never knowing who the tipster is. It's completely anonymous.
Hill Country area covers several counties.
Burnett, Llano, Blanco, Mason, San Saba, and Lampasas.
How busy do you stay with it all?
Well, I average anywhere from 20 to 30 tips a month, mostly drug related. Some child abuse, a lot, and animal abuse.
How has criminal activity changed over the decades in the Marble Falls area?
Increase, because more people move into the area, and so they bring in the drugs, the violence. Like I said, we're not immune to it anymore like we used to be.
Back in the 60s when you were like in middle school, do you remember or were you aware of what crime was like back then?
Don't remember crime at all. I think the biggest thing would be, if you'd get caught with a beer, and they just pour it out and you go on your way.
Did that happen to you?
No, but it happened to boys that I were with. Time was slow, a lot slower then. There wasn't a lot for a teenager to do. We had the movie theater, and there was a drive-in in Burnett. We didn't have any swimming pools in Marble Falls, but there was one out in Granite Shoals. We had trouble finding things to do and to keep out of trouble.
So in 1965, you were 8th grade?
Yeah.
You were in the same grade as Daynon Lewis.
Yes.
What do you remember about Daynon?
The blonde girl. We didn't run the same crowd.
Everyone tells us she was really quiet and shy.
Yeah. I think that's why a lot of people didn't know her well, because she was so shy.
So that school year started in August, and then she died in November.
I just remember being totally shocked, because things like that didn't happen in Marble Falls.
Especially to someone so young.
Yes.
She was very innocent.
Mm-hmm. It was an innocent time.
What do you mean by that?
Well, being in the rural area, we just weren't exposed to things that you would living in the city.
Those urban areas are spilling out all across Texas in recent years. Most of the state has seen a population surge. As counties near the 2.5 million mark, state law requires them to establish a medical examiner's office for death investigations, instead of using justices of the peace. Only a few counties come close to that threshold, but other counties have made their own decision to build an ME office anyway. In 2024, most of the 254 counties in Texas still used the JP system, but 14 had medical examiners, doctors who can perform autopsies and have years of schooling in this profession.
Chair lays out House Bill 3895. Chair recognizes Chairman Oliverson to explain.
The medical examiner is a physician who specializes as a pathologist in accurately determining the cause of death. And so I think for the sake of folks who are deceased and their families, having that actual trained resource available is something that we should encourage.
The topic's long been debated at the state capitol.
I know Representative Parker's been working a lot of the members about this.
It was just making sure that
there wasn't degradation of service to the people of Texas.
One of the latest angles from lawmakers in North Texas, 4 counties counties partner to fund and staff a regional medical examiner district. So they save taxpayers money in the long run and benefit from the expertise of an ME during death investigations.
Since October 1st, 1989, we have worked closely with the Tarrant County Medical Examiner's Office, an entity known and trusted by our residents.
There's talk that the next legislative session could explore how to make that regional idea happen in other parts of the state, opening up new opportunities and ideas for more counties to employ medical examiners sooner, a point supporters made as late as last session.
So this would improve everything for the entire state to get as many people under a medical examiner system than out of the 19th century death investigations, and I consider it a moral imperative.
Until then, most counties will likely wait, as they're nowhere close to that population requirement and the initial financial investment it brings. Like Burnett County, where Daynon died. Since then, it's gone from around 10,000 people to 54,000 today. Time does seem slower here, at least when you look at it that way.
Yeah, we were just getting to the big hair era.
Janie and her classmates are now in their early 70s.
It's been almost 60 years, and there's so many people that still are asking questions.
I would love to see it solved, but I don't think it ever will be. Too much time has passed.
Cases like this stick with you.
Absolutely, yeah, just not having any closure.
That can be frustrating.
It is, yep.
Later that day, after we said goodbye, Janie sent a message to my phone with a photo attached. It was a group picture, similar to the one I'd seen earlier from the 1965 yearbook, the one on the steps of their school with Daynon partially hidden in the crowd. This new one was a few years later, many of the same faces smiling in the sunlight. Janie was near the edge on the front step, her shoulder-length hair flipped at the end. By then, Daynon was already gone. Her class would soon graduate without her. Janie was right. The truth about what really happened so long ago might be lost. But as I mentioned before, our research had led the Justice of the Peace who holds C.B. Wall's seat today to take a closer look at the case. And soon, she'd reveal a major change to the cause of Daynon's death, coming up.
First off, I would have sent the child for an autopsy. That's the first thing that I would have done.
Ultimately, it comes down to the discretion of the Justice of the Peace. And our hope is, in the fact that we have a robust training system in place now, that judges are more comfortable making those decisions.
To learn more about this case, watch our docuseries and explore the digital investigation online now at kxan.com/Backbone Creek. Catalyst is reported and produced by me, Josh Hinkle, along with David Barrere, Arzo Dost, Eric Henriksen, and Dalton Huey. Our editor is Richie Bose. Digital support comes from Robert Sims and Kate Winkle. KXAN's news director is Haley Syhawk, and its general manager is Eric Glassberg.